At number 10, Kanye West. Most people see Kanye West as a little too extra. He's caused scandals like his VMA interruption with Taylor Swift, his comments about George W. Bush, as well as many other instances that have just rubbed people the wrong way. To add to that, he's reportedly very hard to work with. During filming of Anchorman 2, Kanye came on set for a brief appearance in the film, and though he played a small part, he left a big impression on the cast and crew, and it wasn't positive. Apparently, after Kanye wrapped on set, he refused to leave. He could have just gone home after he finished his scenes, but he decided to stick around. That's fine if you want to stay and watch other people's performances, but that's not exactly what Kanye did. Instead, he hung around set blasting music so loudly that it disrupted filming. People tried to get him to just leave, but he wouldn't. I think it's safe to say that if a third Anchorman movie were to happen, Kanye just would not be welcomed back. At number 9, Lea Michele. Lea Michele was exposed in 2020 for her Hollywood mean streak and for her terrible on-set behavior. This all came out following a tweet from former Glee co-star Samantha Ware, where she let the world know how horrible it was to work with Lea. The actress is now described as, quote, callous, rude, mean, and even a diva. But following Samantha's exposure of the Broadway star, other people have come forward with their own testimonies regarding Lea and her mean streak. There have been stories of Lea's microaggressions, but also stories of her spitting in craft service food that she doesn't like, refusing to work with people because they didn't know her middle name, requesting reshoots because she didn't like her costume, disrespecting other castmates, and having crew members apologize on her behalf, and so many other frustrating tidbits that just really show how rude and entitled she's been known to be. No one wants to work with her after learning about how much of a nightmare she can be on set. Before we carry on talking about the celebrities who are just the worst people to work with on set, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Julia Roberts. Even though Julia Roberts seems like a nice person, it turns out that she's a nightmare on set. Ironically, she's almost always cast as nice and endearing characters, but there's seemingly much more to Julia than meets the eye. Apparently, she's known to have a pretty bad attitude on set, which can make working with her an unpleasant experience. In 1991, on the set of the Peter Pan film Hook by Steven Spielberg, Julia earned the on-set nickname Tinkerhell as a play on her character Tinkerbell. She earned this moniker based on the production staff's perception of the actress. Apparently, during filming, she would constantly show up to set late, and even when she was on set, she would lock herself in her trailer for hours on end. She also reportedly treated people badly, and she would never apologize for her mean actions or behavior. Julia was truly the opposite of the pixie she was playing. At number 7, James Corden. A lot of people don't like James Corden. Celebrities and regular old Joes like you and me just can't seem to get along with the late night host, and there's a few reasons for this. Turns out that he's actually pretty mean in real life, and this persona that you see on TV is all just an elaborate ruse. In reality, James is arrogant, rude, and a huge diva. There are a bunch of stories that paint James as a mean person. Firstly, he was once part of a group of people who advocated for paying late night writers less money. Yeah, you heard that right. He's also been known to use a good old "do you know who I am" line quite a number of times, and he's even reportedly told someone that he could buy them if they didn't do what he wanted. There's a lot of problematic energy to unpack there, but that is a whole other video. On top of that, there's been incidents of fans catching James being mean to his wife and letting his temper get the best of him at times. A lot of people say that he only acts nice in order to butt kiss his way to the top, and he doesn't care who he takes down in the process. But I think people are starting to catch on to this ruse because more and more people are starting to dislike him. Just ask Twitter. At number 6, Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts has had quite a few on-set feuds with co-stars. She's had drama with Gabrielle Sidibe, Ariana Grande, and Evan Peters, but the biggest feud that she's had was with Lea Michele on the set of Scream Queens. According to sources, Emma Roberts and Lea Michele had one strong attribute in common, and that was the fact that they were both divas, so while they were working together, they butt heads with each other quite often. Apparently, their fighting got so bad while filming, actress Jamie Lee Curtis had to step in and mediate the hostile situation between Emma and Lea because she was so fed up with their constant bickering while they were trying to work. It was also reported that the actresses would constantly have mean girl moments, making rude and catty comments towards each other almost daily. Rumors of this feuding between them were pretty common in entertainment news while Scream Queens was still in production, showing that things never really died down between the two actresses. It seemed like Emma just caused a heck of a lot of drama with a lot of people on set. At number 5, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne found herself in some hot water earlier last year after she made some comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry that not only caused her to get backlash, but also lose a friend. Sharon Osbourne and Cheryl Underwood got into a heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's comments about Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Pierce's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this frustrated Cheryl because she didn't like the comments that were being made about those involved. The two got into a very heated debate that ended with a lot of drama, sparking a conversation about Sharon's ideals. She was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts. As a result of this, the network for their show launched an internal investigation, and that ended with Sharon being let go from the show. At number 4, Ben Stiller. A lot of people think of Ben Stiller as this super funny guy in Hollywood, but just because someone seems great in the public eye doesn't mean that's how they really are behind closed doors. It seems as though Ben Stiller is a nightmare in disguise because he's a tough guy to work with and he causes a lot of trouble on set. People who know or have worked with Ben in the past have exposed some of his bad behavior on set, and it's kind of shocking. According to those who worked with him on the set of the film Tropic Thunder, he was very controlling and mean to just about everyone there. He even reportedly had a meltdown on set when someone brought him his Diet Coke and it didn't have exactly 2 ice cubes in it. He even had someone fired because they didn't put enough sugar in his coffee. On top of that, Ben even forced his assistant to stand out in the parking lot in his designated parking space, even though it already had a sign saying that it was reserved. And to make matters even more hectic, Ben also freaked out on a female assistant he had, going so far as to refuse to come back to set until she was replaced by a male assistant. If all of this madness happened on just one film set, who knows what other shenanigans have gone on elsewhere with him. At number 3, Jared Leto. You may like Jared Leto on screen, but off screen he's kind of a jerk. There's even a list online that tallies up all the reasons that make him a bad person. And if something like that exists, then you know something's up. Some of the reasons listed as to why Jared sucks so much include the fact that he's been caught being mean to fans, he's rude to reporters during interviews, and he's offended the trans community after winning an Oscar for his performance in Dallas Buyers Club and not mentioning the trans community in his speech, as well as undermining the struggles of the trans community after joking about his appearance in character. Jared has also admitted to lying during interviews whenever possible for absolutely no reason, and people found his Joker antics on the set of Suicide Squad to be a little mean because of the pranks that he would play on people as well as the gifts that he would send to the cast and crew. Most of the allegations against Jared and his attitude are pretty minor, but add them all up and you get someone that you might not necessarily enjoy having around. But what do you guys think? You still want to be his friend? At number 2, Bill Murray. Bill Murray already has a pretty bad reputation in Hollywood for his poor on-set behavior, so it's no surprise to me to find out that he's had some serious drama with one of his castmates on the set of Charlie's Angels. While filming the movie, Bill Murray was said to have antagonized actress Lucy Liu. When watching the film, you'd think that they were all good friends and on good terms, but in reality, that was quite the opposite. The film set was sort of a hostile environment that caused Bill to take a disliking towards Lucy. Turns out Bill would insult Lucy's talent and acting ability, and on one occasion even said, quote, "I get why you're here, you've got talent, but what in the hell are you doing here? You can't act." Apparently the harassment and bullying got so bad at one point that Lucy tried throwing punches at Bill during one scene because his insults got so bad. This antagonizing went on for the entire duration of the production, and Bill kept on berating Lucy about her presence on set and calling her unprofessional as well. This drama was just so unnecessary. And finally, at number 1, Sharon Osbourne. Talk show host Sharon Osbourne faced a lot of backlash last year after making comments about Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. Sharon and her former co-host Cheryl Underwood got into a pretty heated argument surrounding Piers Morgan's remarks on Meghan Markle. During this feud, Sharon backed up Pierce's comments about Meghan Markle's mental health, and this really frustrated a lot of people because many felt as though what was being said was going a little too far. As a result of the remarks that Sharon made, she was called a racist, and a number of other accusations came out about how she's used various slurs in the past when talking about her other co-hosts on the show. As a result of this, the network that they worked for launched an internal investigation to look into the allegations against Sharon, and that ended with Sharon being let go from the show. At number 10, Hugh Grant. Hugh was once banned from The Daily Show after having a really bad interview that really affected the show's host because the actor was being so rude. Jon Stewart, the former host of The Daily Show, said in an interview that Hugh Grant was the absolute worst guest he'd had on the show. He spoke about how when Hugh was on to promote his film Did You Hear About the Morgans, Hugh was making a huge scene backstage and was just being really mean and annoying to the people who were working on set. Apparently, Hugh was allegedly going around saying that he had better places to be. He also got really upset about the clip that they played from the film, saying, quote, "What is that clip? It's a terrible clip," to which John replied, telling Hugh to make a better movie. You could really tell that John was fed up with Hugh and his attitude on the show. John went on to say that because of his poor experience with Hugh, he'd never have him back on his show. At number 9, Harmony Korine. I think it's an unspoken rule that when you're a guest somewhere, you should try to be on your best behavior. One person who really should have followed this rule is director Harmony Korine, who's best known for the movie Spring Breakers. There was once a time when Harmony made a number of appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman in the mid to late 90s. This was also during a time when Harmony was reportedly on a lot of drugs. Though he was a frequent guest on the show, his appearances just stopped all of a sudden, and no one really knew why until 2013 when Letterman revealed the truth as to why the director was banned from coming on the show. Apparently, Letterman caught the director going through Meryl Streep's purse one time, and that was just the last straw for the late night host. When talking about this fateful event, Letterman said, quote, "I went upstairs to greet Meryl Streep and welcome her to the show. I knocked on the door and she was not there. I looked around and saw Harmony going through her purse. True story. And so I said, that's it, put her things back in her bag and get out." End quote. After that, Harmony was no longer welcome on the show and hasn't been back since. Before we carry on talking about these rude celebrities, why not take a moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Bobcat Goldthwait. I think this goes without saying, but don't go setting fire to things. Back in 1994, actor Bobcat Goldthwait was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and during his guest appearance, the actor decided to just randomly set fire to his chair. At the time, Jay thought this was just a spontaneous bit, but in reality, Bobcat came prepared for this as he brought lighter fluid and a lighter that was hidden up his sleeve. Luckily, the other guest who was there that night, Lauren Hutton, was quick on her feet and doused the flames with a cup of water. Jay, understandably, was very unhappy with all this and banned Bobcat from the show. Not only that, but the actor was also charged with arson for this stunt and was ordered to pay over $3,300 in fines, some of which went towards replacing the chair he set fire to. He literally damaged the set, and if that's not rude, then I don't know what is. At number 7, Mike Myers. Does anyone else remember the Cat in the Hat live action film from 2003 starring Mike Myers? I certainly do. It was very cringy, but in a good way, since I was a kid back then and I found everything unbelievably hilarious. I enjoyed that movie as a kid, but one person who didn't enjoy it was the Cat in the Hat himself, Mike Myers. After the success of Austin Powers, Mike was set to bump up his comedy and star in a production based on one of his old characters. But before that was all carried out, the actor and the studio got into some debates and there was legal trouble. It was all just unnecessary drama. Well, they both ended up reaching an agreement and it obligated Mike to star in the Cat in the Hat movie. He never wanted to sign up for that, and he really made it known how badly he didn't want to be there. According to people who worked with him on set during filming of the Cat in the Hat, Mike was very rude and dismissive, and he refused to talk to anyone. He became a hermit and a diva apparently, and this whole experience and subsequent film were all so bad that Dr. Seuss's widow said that she would never allow Hollywood to make another movie based on one of Seuss's books again. At number 6, Gene Simmons. I think we can all agree that Gene Simmons is kind of outlandish. He's a guy with a lot of energy and no filter, so when it comes to interviewing him live, you never know what he might say, but you can only hope that it won't be too offensive. At one point, the singer was a Fox favorite, making regular appearances on their programming where they would discuss hot topics in the world and would share their opinions on things. They liked the guy and liked having him on their show, but after causing a stir during a meeting at Fox and making some rude comments towards some of the other staff members, Gene got banned for life, and it was a hot topic of its own. Some of the things that Gene said to some of the women at the network got leaked, and it's not something you would want to have said to you. Let's just put it that way. After all of that went down, the singer was not welcomed back on their programming because they didn't like the way he behaved. At number 5, Katherine Heigl. A lot of people don't like Katherine Heigl because of how rude she is. She's known in the film industry for being pretty mean and having a diva attitude. She's allegedly mean to people on set, has high demands, and just has a very bad overall attitude. She's known to be quite critical of her roles and the material that she's given to work with, and she even said this when she withdrew from the Emmy nominations because she said that the material she was given for Grey's Anatomy didn't warrant an Emmy. That is certainly disrespectful disrespectful to the writers because for someone to say something like that implies that the writing wasn't good enough to please people, whereas the people at the Emmys thought it was worth an award. And on top of that, winning this kind of award looks good for the team, but Catherine obviously didn't think of that. She only thought about herself. The actress is known to make ridiculously high salary demands, and she's apparently been doing this since before she became a big name in the industry. She's reportedly hired and fired a lot of publicists and assistants over the years, so she really sounds like quite the diva and a horrible boss too. Because of all this, directors and Hollywood execs just don't want to work with her anymore, and honestly, I can't really say that I blame them. At number 4, Kelly Osbourne. Now, we just talked about Sharon Osbourne and her talk show scandal, but her daughter Kelly has also been in her share of controversies, including one that happened while on a talk show that kind of ruined her career because of a rude comment that she made. During an episode of The View, Kelly Osbourne really missed the mark when trying to clap back at Donald Trump, even though she was trying to diss Trump, and ended up getting in enough trouble herself. Just shortly before this episode aired, Donald Trump, who was at the time only a presidential nominee, was saying offensive things about the Latinx community and how he wanted to deport them. I'm sure we're all familiar with this one. Well, in a very poor attempt at clapping back at Trump's racist comments, Kelly said, quote, "If you kick every Latina out of this country, then who's going to be cleaning your toilet, Donald Trump?" What Kelly was trying to do was defend the Latinx community, but rather than stand up for them, she ended up offending them even more, as her remarks were interpreted as saying that the Latinx community is only good for being housekeepers, as depicted in many racial stereotypes. After facing so much backlash and realizing the gravity of her words, Kelly issued an apology saying, quote, "I want to start by saying I always take responsibility for my actions. In this particular case, I will take responsibility for my poor choice of words, but I will not apologize for being a racist, as I am not." At number 3, Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase is known for being in National Lampoon and the show Community, but is also known around Hollywood as being kind of a jerk and starting drama with the people that he works with. There are a bunch of articles, books, and interviews of people talking about their experiences with the actor and how mean he can be. There are even stories in the book Live from New York that detail the times Chase has been mean to staff, writers, interns, and other hosts. Will Ferrell and Bill Murray are among those who have taken a disliking to Chase because of the way that he's treated others. Will Ferrell has said that he doesn't like Chevy because of the way that he treats some female staff members, and Bill Murray and Chevy Chase even got into a brawl backstage of SNL back in the day, where they said some pretty hurtful things to each other because they were kind of comedy rivals on the show. Chevy just doesn't get along with everyone, and he said it's because his fame went to his head, but something tells me that's not the only reason why he starts drama. At number 2, Marc Summers. When it comes to talk shows, sometimes you can never predict what's gonna happen. These shows are often used to catch up with a celebrity and just talk about life and whatnot, but sometimes these conversations can turn into brawls when the wrong thing is said, and this is pretty much what happened between Burt Reynolds and Marc Summers in 1994 when they were both guests on Jay Leno's talk show. The two men got into a heated brawl after some jokes were made that offended the both of them. Essentially, Marc Summers made a comment about how he was still married, while Burt at the time was going through a divorce, and it made Burt pretty upset. In retaliation, Burt threw some water at Marc, and that's what sparked the fight. It gets to the point where Jay Leno just can't keep the show together because his guests were fighting so much, and producers even went so far as to bring out pies for Marc and Burt to make it look like this fight was staged. After this, people got talking, and some people came to the conclusion that this brawl was uncalled for, and since Marc started it, he felt the most backlash. And finally, at number 1, Ellen. In late 2019, actress Dakota Johnson sat down for an interview with Ellen, and some people see this interview as the one that started this whole Ellen is mean scandal because of how rude Ellen was. During the interview, Ellen berated Dakota about the fact that she wasn't invited to Dakota's birthday party. People saw this whole debate as incredibly unnecessary, but the part that people loved the most was how Dakota shut Ellen down. When Ellen said that she was mad for not being invited to Dakota's birthday party, Dakota in response said, quote, "Actually no, that's not the truth, Ellen, you were invited. No, last time when I was on the show last year, you gave me a bunch of crap about not inviting you, but I didn't even know you wanted to be invited," end quote. Dakota was even backed up by one of the show's producers who reassured Ellen that she was invited and that she just didn't show up because at the time, she claimed that Dakota's Malibu party was, quote, "a little too far for her." Dakota shutting Ellen down and not being made to look like the bad guy Ellen intended was great for fans, and following Ellen's cancellation, fans started to realize just how rude Ellen was. At number 10, Jennifer Lopez. This probably doesn't come as a shock to many, but it turns out that J-Lo isn't very nice. A lot of people have said that she's a real diva, and others say that she's just plain rude, and she's done a number of things that have rubbed people the wrong way. Apparently, the singer/actress is very picky about who may or may not speak to her, and for those permitted to address her, they're not allowed to make eye contact. There have even been reports that she flat out refuses to comply with scripts. This has happened on a few occasions, most notably during filming for a Fiat commercial where they needed to hire a double for Jennifer simply because she just didn't want to do certain things for the shoot. On top of that, she doesn't have a good reputation with a lot of people who's worked with her either. She's said to have completely ignored the people who are remodeling her house. She's gotten a cleaning lady fired for having asked for an autograph, and she even refuses to talk to in-flight staff and pilots on flights and instructs her assistant to talk to them for her. And to make matters worse, even though her staff do so much for her, including communicating for her, they don't get paid very much for their time. Even though she may seem super cool on the surface, she's a little sour in real life. At number 9, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey isn't the nicest person ever. She's had several run-ins with the paparazzi which have not gone over well, she's had some pretty bad relationships with others, and she's known for being a complete and utter diva. But there's one incident in particular that really just exposes how mean Mariah can be. There was a lawsuit from one of Mariah's former assistants which accused her of a number of horrible things. The former assistant alleged that the singer peed on her, ridiculed her body, and called her a handful of pretty rude names. Her former assistant said that she was hired by the singer to be on call 24/7 and assisted both Mariah and her manager at the time. Though she was paid a salary of $250,000 a year, this wage couldn't cover up the horrible things that she was put through by Mariah. But her case wasn't the only one up against the singer at the time. While this case was being disputed, Mariah had just settled one with her former manager who cited breach of contract, harassment, and unpaid wages. Just because you pay people a lot of money doesn't mean you get to treat them like trash. Now before I carry on with the list, I would like to take a moment to ask you guys to consider leaving a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, because your likes really help to support the channel and we love to see it. At number 8, Gwyneth Paltrow. A lot of people seem to really dislike Gwyneth Paltrow for some reason. Though she's never really done anything horrible to people directly, it is alleged that she's so disliked in Hollywood because she comes off as pretty pretentious, egotistical, and privileged. People don't really see Gwyneth as the average person or as someone that they can relate to, which a lot of people seem to find off-putting. The Goop founder seems to like flaunting her wealth and materialistic things and makes it seem like it's something that everyone else has or can afford. For example, her Goop website's list of must-have clothing pieces and other things include things that cost hundreds if not thousands of dollars, which not a lot of people can relate to having. On top of that, she came from a wealthy family, so being someone who's always been rich, she doesn't really know how to humble herself around those who haven't been as fortunate as her. People also don't like how she comes across as self-centered, as she seems to always talk about herself and how fit she is and how great her lifestyle is. She also has a diva attitude. She's been known to slam Michelin star restaurants, and if you know what that means, then you know she's got an attitude to do something like that. And to make matters worse, she's been known to demand that people clean and dry the shower at the gym after someone's used it because she, quote, can't touch somebody else's shower water. Yeah. She just has a lot of diva energy and can come across as quite rude, so I can understand why not everyone wants to be her friend. At number 7, Piers Morgan. I feel like when a celebrity asks for something specific, it should be given to them. I'm not talking about anything material like demanding a cup of ice chips or something. I mean a specific request in reference to the way that they're treated. For actor Kelsey Grammer, he made a very specific request when he was doing an interview with Piers Morgan, and when that request wasn't honored, there was a falling out that led to the actor being banned from the show because of the drama. When the actor made a guest appearance on Piers Morgan Tonight back in 2012, he requested that a picture of his ex-wife not be shown. He's willing to answer questions about her, but just didn't want to have a photo of her to be aired. Well, Piers didn't exactly honor that request, and when a photo of the ex-wife was shown, Kelsey stormed off set. The actor's publicist said that Piers had to take accountability for his actions because Kelsey was so mad about the situation, but instead, Piers barred the actor from his show. That was pretty rude of him. At number 6, Amy Schumer. It seems like Amy Schumer doesn't really care about what people think of her. In a way, that can be a good thing because you learn to live your life for yourself, but it can also give you an attitude and prevent you from thinking about your actions and how they can impact others. An example of this comes from an incident from back in 2018 where Amy full-on stole a comedian's stand-up set. Amy was at a comedy club and up on stage, and an up-and-coming comedian was doing one of his first long sets, and obviously this was a pretty big deal for the guy until Amy ruined it. She walked into the venue and went to the manager to ask if she could steal 10 minutes of stage time because she wanted to practice her new set. Because the other comedian just started on stage, the manager said no, so Amy hit back with the "but I'm Amy Schumer." Like that's really gonna do something. After getting refusals left and right, she decided to take matters into her own hands and marched up on the stage and just took over his time for a few minutes. I know Amy is a big timer, but come on, you have to remember what it was like to be up and coming, and that kind of behavior is just rude. At number 5, Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf has really been going through it in Hollywood. He kind of has a bad reputation now because of the conflicts that he's been in, the latest of which got him fired from a movie. Because of his bad attitude and clashes on set, the actor was fired by Olivia Wilde from the upcoming film Don't Worry Darling. It was announced in late fall of 2020 that Harry Styles would be replacing Shia in the film, and now we know that it was due to Shia's alleged bad behavior, as people have cited that the actor was, quote, not an easy guy to work with. It was alleged that there was some kind of conflict between him and Olivia Wilde as well, and the fact that other cast and crew members didn't like working with him, Shia was let go. Getting fired is always a negative thing, but in Hollywood, when a lot of your work involves other relationships with other actors and having connections, having a bad experience that was enough to get you fired can ultimately burn that bridge and result in you having less work. At number 4, Michael Phelps. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps is often referred to as the best swimmer of all time, but it seems like his aquatic skills are really the only thing he's got going for him, since apparently he's got a pretty bad attitude and is pretty rude in real life. Michael has done some bad stuff in his life, so people already don't think that highly of him as an individual. Back in 2014, he was arrested for driving under the influence, and speaking of under the influence, Phelps has also been caught with drugs before. Already, this isn't good for his image because being an Olympian, people have a lot of eyes on you. Phelps was reprimanded for his drunk driving and was suspended from swimming for 6 months, but other than that, this scandal was kept pretty under wraps. Now if only they could have put that much energy into Sha'Carri Richardson. On top of this swimmer being a felon, he's also known to not be a team player. Apparently he hides himself away from his other teammates when at competitions like the Olympics instead of being with his team to support them. You would think that being at something like the Olympics, you would want to soak up all that team spirit, but no. Michael wants nothing to do with his team and instead flies solo. Kind of mean if you ask me. At number 3, James Corden. Recently, TV host James Corden found himself in some trouble with fans after his Spill Your Guts segment of his show started facing backlash. Fans were calling for James to take accountability after he made some comments about some Asian foods that he had on the show that some fans thought were offensive. Because the foods that they use in the Spill Your Guts segment are supposed to be ones that you wouldn't eat, the fact that some Asian foods like balut were used and called, quote, disgusting, made a lot of people take to the internet to call for accountability and an apology from James Corden. Apparently, James had been making these types of comments about a lot of different Asian dishes on a few occasions, so some people have said enough is enough and even created a petition calling for the removal of the Spill Your Guts segment. At number 2, Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera may have the voice of an angel, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she is one. Turns out she has a bit of a dark side, and a handful of people have experienced it. Other than being shady at Lady Gaga during their 2008 feud, where she called her some unpleasant names and said, quote, I'm not quite sure who this person is, to be honest, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, end quote. She's also had some other rude encounters with more of her peers. When working on the set of her various gigs, she's reportedly always late, holds up production, and never apologizes for delaying production. She also reportedly has some beef with Adam Levine while working on The Voice, and they would bicker constantly. Christina is also known to be an absolute diva, and working with her seems to be a nightmare because sources say that she's very rude and demanding of her household staff and treats her staff poorly, insisting that they are on call 24/7. Christina also has had feuds with Pink, Mariah Carey, and even got mad at Mickey Mouse once. Yeah, she got into a heated argument with Mickey Mouse when she was at Disneyland in 2014 for her birthday. She wanted to take a picture with the mouse, but he was going on break, so instead of being an understanding person, she pulled the "Do you know who I am" card. I mean, how can you do that to Mickey? What did Mickey do? And finally, at number 1, Bruce Willis. Actor Bruce Willis has had a great career making great movies and basking in fame, but it seems as though he's not all that great in real life. Apparently, Bruce is a nightmare to work with as he's gotten into a number of conflicts with others on set, and people just really hate working with him. Before Die Hard launched his film career, he was brought into stardom after working on the show Moonlighting alongside his co-star Sybil Shepherd. Back in 2005, Shepherd told sources that there came a point where her relationship with Bruce became really toxic and they clashed a lot on set. There was reportedly constant bickering and it was just a really bad working environment. But of course, Sybil isn't the only one to have clashed with Bruce while working together. Filmmaker Kevin Smith has also had his troubles working with Bruce while filming the 2010 film Cop Out. He told sources that though he once saw Bruce as his hero in past productions, that opinion completely went out the window, saying that working with Bruce was difficult. When speaking out about their time together on set, Kevin said, quote, "He turned out to be the unhappiest, most bitter, and meanest emo B-word I've ever met at any job I've held down, and mind you, I worked at Domino's Pizza. What an awful experience." End quote. Now I just wonder if something triggers this horrible behavior or if he's just always like this.